All right. Hello, everyone. Okay, it looks like we've got a few more people coming in. I'm just going to give it a few more minutes before we just get started. Okay, the numbers aren't actually moving, so we'll just leave that there. Okay, hi, everyone. My name is Chiadza. I am one of the academic advisors in the First Year Center, and I am joined by my colleague, Yelena, who is also an academic advisor in the First Year Center. And we would both like to welcome you to our first academic success workshop today for the fall term. And we will be talking about creating a study schedule. So our hope for today is to help you to just, get organized for your whole term, to create, a weekly study schedule and keep you on track with your daily sessions as well. So this may be your first term for a lot of the students here who are joining us. So this may be your very first term as a University of Manitoba student. And you will notice that studying at the university is quite different from high school. And for those of you who are returning students, maybe you'd be interested in improving some of your study skills and your time management skills. And that's what we're here to help you with. Our goal is that you come away with at least one skill, one technique that you can use in creating an effective study schedule and just to help you with your study skills. So just to give you an idea of our plan for today, we're just going to, break this down into a few doable tasks, right? So first we'll look at things from planning your term. So this is kind of on the broader approach of things, right? Because you're looking at a few months of the term, right? So for the fall term, we plan how to plan your studies for that time. We will then break it down into a week. So what does a week look like for you? When you're thinking about your study schedule for the week, what does that look like? And then we'll break it down into the day and then further on into your study session. So what does an actual study session look like for you? The other thing is we also realize that sometimes things don't go as planned. So it's important for us to kind of try to plan for that as well. So what do we do when things go wrong? And yeah, maybe Lena can tell us a bit about planning for the term.
Yeah, so as Jedza said, the first thing you want to look at is that big picture. And we're going to work through planning for your term into some of those smaller, more manageable tasks. So the first thing you want to do is put all of the important dates and deadlines into your phone. You may not use your phone as your organizer. Some students prefer an agenda or a planner, maybe a calendar, whatever system works for you. You're, of course, welcome to use. But a lot of those important dates you should have available to you at this time. So you want to make sure that you review your syllabus, your course outlines, your assignment due dates, and your test due dates should all be in there so you can start planning accordingly. And you also want to review the University of Manitoba's important dates and deadlines, such as the revision period, the voluntary withdrawal date, and the fee payment deadline. So those are dates that you also want to keep in mind. And lastly, you want to make sure that you add important dates or dates that are important to you. So those can be holidays, birthdays, anniversaries. The reason that you want to plan ahead of time or looking into your whole term is that you're able to manage your time better when you know what you're expecting throughout each week of the term. And we talked about some of the important dates and deadlines in the previous slide. I mentioned the revision period, which is the last day to add or drop courses. And we've highlighted those for you right here. So the last day to drop any courses and not be assessed for voluntary withdrawal or for fees in the fall term is September 22nd. So, if things are not going well for you in the course, if you decide that this is not a good fit for you, you're able to drop the course by September 22nd. It will not appear on your official transcript and you will not owe the fees for it. The last day to add a course for fall term is September 23rd. So again, you have a couple more days to think about whether you want to add a course. Perhaps you're on a wait list, but if this is something you're considering, please be mindful that you have missed at this point a week of courses. So you want to also make sure that you fit in some time to catch up on missed coursework and really evaluate if this is going to be manageable for you. Of course, these are not the only important dates that we have in the fall and in the winter term. So we do encourage you to go to the first year planning guide. You can click on that, Chiedza. And at the end of the first year planning guide, we actually lay out the important dates for fall and winter, as well as link you to the official important dates and deadlines website at the University of Manitoba. So please make sure that you don't neglect this. This is your responsibility to know the dates, and the information is all here for you.
Thanks for that, Elena. Okay, so then now that we know how to actually plan for the term, we want to factor in all those important dates, right? Now we want to think about planning for the week. When you start to plan for a week, there are a few things to consider. First of all, this is something that you should be doing at the beginning of each week. You should, schedule just the important stuff that you want to put in there is going to be starting with some of your fixed commitments. So these are things like your classes. You know exactly when they're happening. You are probably familiar with this now because you've had the first week of term so far. At least you've gone through all of your courses so far, right? So you've got your course schedules and you know when these things are happening. These are called your fixed commitments. And we recommend that you put these in first. Then next, you want to put in other things that could also be fixed, which are things like, going to the gym or work. Your work schedule could also be a fixed commitment, or it could change regularly. We absolutely understand that. And this is why you are planning your week every single week, right? Because it could look a little bit different. So you want to plug in all these other commitments, including self-care as well. You can actually plug that in and consider that. Another thing that we would strongly recommend that you keep in mind is if you're taking any distance education courses which don't have an allocated time slot, try to put those in and give yourself that commitment that is going to be a fixed time slot in your week. That way you're factoring that into your study time. After that, you want to put in regular study time. So as a general guideline, we like to recommend that you put in at least for every 1 hour that you spend in your lecture time, try to put in at least 2 hours of study time. So we've kind of come up with this because we noticed that a lot of students tell us that this is something that they find helpful because when they first started off coming in from high school to university, there's such a big difference in how much time you allocate to your study time. A lot of students underestimate just how much time is required to be successful in university and how much time is required to actually study outside of class time. So you'll find that a lot of the learning that happens in university actually happens outside of class time compared to what maybe you may have been familiar with in high school. So it's important for you to actually plan that into your week and to create that time and think about how you're actually spending that time. So you can then fill in your study time with more specific tasks. I think this is a very good example if you see just how this calendar has filled up, where the study sessions have now been filled in with very specific items to do during those time slots. And you can actually get some of an idea of how to fill in these time slots by looking at your course syllabus and thinking about some of the topics that are coming up or that you may have already studied, and how you can factor that into your study time. Next, you can also then think about, putting in your planning for your days, right? What are you trying to get accomplished in a day? And we recommend that you put in checklists. You can even factor in breaks into your checklist as well, because you need that sort of stuff. Even going back to planning your week, you want to plug that in as well because you want that balance in your schedule. So what we have over here, as you can see, is we've got a few checklists, and it all depends on what works for you. Some students like to, as Lena mentioned, maybe use a notepad or your diary or something else, or maybe you might want to use the phone app to create a checklist. What we have on the left-hand side here, you see that there's an iPhone screenshot of the notes section where the student has actually put specific tasks that they want to complete on this day. So on September 11th, 2020, what does this person want to get done? So it's important for those tasks to be small, specific, and manageable. When you put in vague items in your checklist, it's kind of hard to figure out when that task is done, right? So maybe if we compare what we have here on the screen, I like the second one there that says read chapter 2 for psychology, 1200, pages 45 to 64. Sorry, 62. So you can actually check that off once that's done, because you know when those pages are done, compared to what we have on the right-hand side there, which says start English paper. How do you know when to check that off? You know, how do you know when that task is actually completed? A better way to do this is maybe to just, you know, break it down and make it more specific and more manageable, right? Research and gather secondary sources of English paper and spend 30 minutes doing that. So this is actually a very, you know, specific task, and it's very manageable because you can gauge when this task is done and you can gauge when it's completed, and then you can actually check that off. So it's important to try to use a checklist to help you with your planning for your day. Other things that we also like to kind of help you think about is when you are thinking about your study sessions, communicate this with, you know, everybody that you live with in your household. So this could be, you know, maybe you live with your parents, maybe you have siblings, maybe you have kids or roommates, and sometimes it can be, you know, there could be a few distractions, and at the same time you don't want to be interrupted, right? And you want to make sure that you have, you know, an opportunity to share your schedule with the people that you live with. What we have here is, you know, just to give you an idea of how to communicate that with the people that you live with, so that there's uninterrupted time and you're able to actually study for unbroken chunks of time. So this is a good example of actually putting your study schedule or your class schedule even in a space that everybody can see it, so that everybody that you live with knows when you are available and when you're not available. And this is the beauty of also putting in, you know, your study breaks too, right? Or maybe even having a dedicated space for studying and all your study sessions, and having a do not disturb sign so that everybody knows that when that sign is up, they should not be trying to, you know, disturb you, or, you know, this is your quiet time to actually get some work done. Maybe you're writing an exam, who knows, but it's important for you to just have that moment to be able to concentrate. But because you factored in all your breaks too, this is also a good idea to give somebody else an idea of, okay, when can you actually have a conversation, or maybe you want to take a break too. It's important to take that mental break.
And if I could just jump in here,
Yeah.
if you go back to the previous slide, I think in
Mhm.
previous years, we probably didn't think about sharing your schedule with other people in your household. But given that we are having our term taking place remotely, a lot of us are spending time working from home, working with other people from home. So it is really important that, you know, when you are listening into your lectures or when you are studying at home, you really set those boundaries with those that you live with in order to minimize some of the disruptions that may occur, just as, you know, it isn't inevitable when you share a living space with somebody.
That's
And
true.
that's one of the biggest things that we noticed from comments from students, that remote learning has really tested your ability to be able to focus and concentrate when you're sharing a space with other people.
Yes. So the idea here is for you to try to minimize those disruptions, right, Yelena, and to make your study sessions, you know, just to have a focused time. Thanks for that. Okay, so a tool that you can use to help you with this is the Pomodoro technique. This is one of our favorite techniques in the office, and maybe some of you may have heard of this before. But this is essentially a technique to help you, first of all, beat procrastination, but also to, you know, factor in those breaks. Sometimes it's so easy to get distracted, right? But when you factor in those breaks, then you know when it is time for you to actually pay attention to other things, or, you know, to actually just focus on your class time, or at least your study time or your working time. So the Pomodoro technique is essentially setting a timer, which helps you to focus, to have a focused time, and then to also factor in your breaks. So in this case, we've put in a 25-minute study time or working time, and then giving yourself a 5-minute break. this 5-minute break is a reward, right? You have to treat yourself for you to remain motivated, and to also factor in those things that could potentially be distractions. You're actually plugging in a time in your schedule for your study session, for you to do those things that could have typically, in normal circumstances, would have distracted you. You can decide how much time works for you. Sometimes some students like to do 45 minutes of study time and then 15-minute break, or a 60-minute study time and then a 20-minute break. It's up to you. We encourage you to try this out and to do and try to figure out what works best for you. But it is important for you to remember that those rewards and breaks are important for you to stay motivated. They certainly help you stay motivated. It is also effective because this is usually the amount of time that people can spend on things like taking a TV break, right? Or just watching something, or catching up on some of the other things that you maybe responding to texts, or whatever else that would typically be a distraction. You've actually factored that into your study time. And it's so much easier for you to overcome those shortcomings of the issues that you may experience with that. So we have
Well, and if I can just jump in, one of the other benefits of the Pomodoro technique is that a lot of times when we think about doing big tasks, so for example, I need to read 50 pages for my lecture tomorrow, or I need to write an 8-page essay for my English class, that can seem really overwhelming and somewhat painful as a student. And when you're able to break it down into smaller, more manageable tasks, like we talked about previously, 25 minutes is really not a lot, and it's not very painful to get started on a task. So you know that if you have 25 minutes of focused work followed by a reward, at least you started working towards that bigger goal, which is, read 50 pages or write a paper. So it's a lot less painful, and you are getting rewarded by working towards your end goal and not leaving it to the last minute, where you're going to feel a lot more pressure if you procrastinate.
Yeah, and we would encourage you to, if you want to, take a screenshot of this link, and maybe you can try it out afterwards. It actually takes you to a page, a Pomodoro page, and it's a timer that just goes off, right? So that you can actually use that for your study sessions. So you can actually bookmark this link, and you'll be able to use it when you're doing your studies as well. We also recommend a few apps that you could use. There's a number of different apps that are out there, but these are just two of our favorites in our office. And we've had a number of students tell us that they also use these apps too, and they find them very useful. One is the Focus Keeper, and the other one is the Forest app. What we like about these is that there's also rewards that are built into these apps. So for instance, with the Forest app, the longer you stay sort of away from your phone, and you're using your phone for a good reason this time, right, as a timer, you are actually building up a forest. And if you break that session, your forest kind of falls apart. And we just find that to be a bit of a fun tool to use. And we encourage you to please check this out and just see what works for you. The idea here is for you to just get a few things that maybe you can try out and see what would be a great fit for you.
So I really like this image because it paints the reality of when things go wrong. We may have the best of intentions when we're planning our study schedule, but we have to be realistic and remember that sometimes things don't really go according to our plan. But with that being said, we do encourage you to build in some time into your study schedules for when these types of situations arise. So whether you were distracted by social media or other people in your household, or maybe you were unexpectedly required to attend to a personal matter, these are things that we can't really anticipate that they may happen, but we can plan for them. So it really comes down to trying to avoid procrastination and trying to set priorities in the event that things do go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And we did spend a lot of time talking about, the different tips to help you get started with creating a study schedule. We started off with talking about your term at a glance, so being aware of all of the important dates, as well as the important deadlines that are coming up this fall term. You can also use this template that's on the screen right here to help you with your weekly studies schedule. And remember that your weekly study schedules may look a little bit different each week depending on some of your commitments. When it comes to planning for your day or planning your specific studies sessions, there are many apps that you can use. My preference was always using a planner just because it was visual and it was always with me, so I can easily make adjustments to it. But again, you can use whatever tool will work best for you. And now we've given you all the tools, and we're hoping that you're able to try out as many of them as you wish. And we're hopeful that you're prepared to start working on your study schedule. And I'm going to put into the link, into the chat, the link for this particular timetable planning form. But again, you're not obligated to use it. You can use whatever works for you.
Yeah, so it's a fillable PDF. So if you download that, you can fill it in and print it out and just sort of make it whatever works best for you. Don't forget to, plug in those, evenings and weekends as well. Those are still hours that you can use to get ahead and to create an effective study schedule for yourself. So please feel free to use this tool. We find it very useful in our office. So you can certainly try that out. So we can't really talk about creating a study schedule without addressing time management skills, right? That's a very important thing. And we want to take a few moments to chat about study strategies that make the best use of your time. So these are things like taking effective notes, condensing those notes right after class, and reading actively and highlighting with care. So we will break this down a bit and talk a bit more about this. So I'm sure you've maybe seen from some of the classes that you've taken so far that a lot of times you get a wall of text that just looks something like this. And sometimes it's a little overwhelming. It's hard to kind of figure out what's important here and what isn't, right? And so this is where effective note taking is important. And it's important to think about what you are getting from a passage that looks like this, where it's just a wall of text. So what you want to think about is, if I'm going to be studying this material a few months from now in December in preparation for my exams, what do I actually need to pay attention to? What is most important? So your notes need to be effective, and consider using a shorter and more condensed note form. So if you really think about it, we just previously saw a whole lot of text, and now we've been able to condense that to 3 meaningful points from that text. We've been able to use bullet points. We've been able to also just use shorthand as well to just make things make a little more sense. So this will actually really help you in the future for your preparation for exams and any other things that you might be trying to do, like midterms, as well as some of your assignments. If you've been able to condense your notes into something that actually captures what's important here. So as your professors are explaining things during the lectures, try to focus on the main points. Try to figure out, okay, what is the professor actually trying to communicate to us here, and what are they trying to convey, instead of trying to write every single word down. Just sort of like what we're doing with this presentation, it's really hard for you to write every single word that we're saying word for word, right? But then there are key points, right? And so it's important for you to write short hand and also to condense these notes so that you have the most important notes there. So again, try to keep in mind just numbering those things, indenting, putting big topics so that they stand out to you. Give yourself examples as well so that you're able to actually follow your notes and give yourself things that are more, I guess, that you can use to help to understand that material better, and abbreviate so that you're able to keep up with the material during the lecture. We like to share some of these tips for shorthand and abbreviations that you can use. If you'd like to take a screenshot of this, we are happy to share that with you guys. But these are just tips that we have for how you can actually, use shorthand instead of trying to write full, words, right? And long sentences. We have more over here of just to give you an idea of how to help you take more effective and more efficient notes when you're in class.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And the second study strategy that we encourage you to think about is condensing your notes after class. So when you write notes, handwritten notes in your notebook, they might look something like this. There's scribbles, information is all over the place. It's not the most organized. There's just a lot of information in here. And while you may feel like you completely understand everything in the moment, if you refer back to that notebook months from now, you may not remember all that information. Can we go back one, please?
Sorry.
Thank you. It's always worth it to condense your notes right after class. This is a form of active studying because you're putting the ideas into your own words, you're fleshing out ideas, and it's helping that learning really sink into your long-term memory, which is what you want. You want to be able to understand the information and to be able to memorize it, because that is going to help you prepare for your final exams when you're going to have to refer back to these notes. So think about, 4 months from now when you're writing your final exams, are you going to want to review your notes from something that looks like this or from something that's going to look like this? This is obviously a much more organized way of keeping your notes. This is a condensed version of everything that was written in the notebook in the previous slide. So in these notes, we aren't just rewriting every single word that was written in the notebook. This is a condensed format because it's taken the most important information from the lecture into what I need to learn and what I need to understand. If I have to come back to this in a few months, it's going to make a lot of sense to me. It's going to be easier to review than the previous slide where I had all of those messy notes. So try to make condensing notes right after class a habit. This is when the information is the most fresh in your mind. The longer you wait, the more of that information is going to disappear, and it's going to create a lot more work for you in the long term because you're going to have to review a lot more. So if you can get into the habit of condensing your notes right after class, if you have the ability to do so, or at least within that 24-hour period, your future self is going to be very grateful.
Mm-hmm. And your condensed notes don't have to be typed out, right? We know we've just sort of made that comparison there, but you can certainly condense notes by handwriting them as well. It's whatever works best for you.
And then our third tip is to read actively and highlight with care. So a lot of students, when they highlight the page where it looks like this, where most of the page is actually highlighted. But we really wonder if this is the most effective form of highlighting. When you highlight, it's not a very helpful technique unless you do it properly. Highlighting is, simply the motion of moving your hand across the page. You aren't actually reviewing the information. It's a very passive activity. So it's unlikely that information is going to stick in your memory. However, if you are going to highlight, these are some of the more effective ways of doing so. So we have a few notes on the side here just to help you, just to give you some guidelines around highlighting. So the first one is to mark down any definitions and examples. And you can see that on this page, we have the definitions right here. So we've identified that this is a definition, and we have examples, for example, right here. So this is helpful because definitions give us a general idea about what the concepts are, and examples help us connect those ideas and support them. You can also add numbers. That helps you build a skeleton and organizing your information into a more meaningful way. So it looks like this article was discussing different types of study strategies, and you can see that each study strategy has its own number, and in the margins, they're all outlined. And they're also outlined throughout the text.
Mm-hmm.
The third tip here is highlight only the most important information. And this is really important. In the previous slide, you saw most of the page was highlighted. Here, there's very few lines that are actually highlighted. Don't believe that just because you highlight something, you're going to remember it. Use your highlighter as a flag or an indicator that something is very important, and it's something that you need to come back to when you're reviewing the information again. You also are able to note any questions that you may have as you're reviewing the material that you're reading. So you can see that there's about halfway through the page, there's a how question, and that can be very helpful. That is another way to help you connect the dots between what you're reviewing. You can go over the questions with other people in class, with your TA, with your professor, a tutor, or you can also help yourself by trying to find the answer to that question, which of course is going to reinforce your learning and help you with making that information stick in your long-term memory. And lastly, you're able to use the space in the margins to help you write notes and make those notes useful to you. It helps you stay engaged and stay active in that material.
All right. Perfect. Okay, so we've actually gone through quite a few tips and tricks and recommendations that we have for you guys. And we realize that, you might have, questions that are specific to the courses that you are taking. And we would like to encourage you, strongly, to consider booking an appointment with a study skills tutor. This is a resource that is available to you as a U of M student, and it's part of the resources that are available to you amongst a variety of others, where you'd be able to get assistance with things that might be related specifically to the courses that you are taking. So the Academic Learning Center actually has study skills tutors and a variety of other tutors that can help you with this sort of thing. And we've only listed some of the things that are available through there, but you can certainly do this by booking an appointment with a tutor. We're going to show you how to access the Academic Learning Center website and how to make an appointment with a tutor. So we'll do that from, the U of M homepage. You can see my screen, right, Lana?
Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect. All right. So from here, from the U of M homepage, you certainly want to click Academics. And from there, you want to scroll down a bit and just click Go To directly. And this will take you to this link here that has the Academic Learning Center, and you can click that. This is going to be the Academic Learning Center homepage. They give us a lot of information about what else they do at the Academic Learning Center. So when you have some free time, please go through this web page and just sort of see what else is available here and what would be applicable to what you are interested in and the courses that you are taking. But for now, we're just going to go up to the top here and make an appointment with a tutor. So we'll click this button, and that will actually take us to the page where we can log in and be able to access all of the resources available at the Academic Learning Center and make an appointment. So the first time that you go to this page, you're going to need to register for an account, and that'll be able to, you can set that up using your U of M student email account, and you'll be able to log in. For now, we will log in here. And this is what the page will look like when you have logged in. You want to then click depending on what it is that you want to use. For now, we will just click the content and study skills tutors, because that's what we want to access here. And this will give us a schedule of the tutors that are available depending on the classes that you are taking. So this is exactly what we were referring to when we say that there's resources that are available to you depending on which courses you might be taking. So even though the information that we may have gone through today might seem a little broad, maybe you want help with studying for a very specific course. You can make an appointment with the study skills tutor or writing tutor, and they'll be able to assist you with that. So if we scroll down here, we're actually able to see their availability where there's a white space here that means that there's actually an available spot, so you can actually book that. So it's a matter of actually changing the times. Oh, I think I missed that at the top here. You can actually select a course that you would want. Maybe for now, let's do study skills, and let's see what's available there. So we can see the tutors that are normally available for study skills, and we can see the schedule down here. The name of the tutors is going to be available over here. And if you click a spot, then more information will come up to help you create the appointment. The time slot will be available here. It will give you some information about the tutor who's going to be able to assist you, and any information, any additional information that you might need about booking this appointment. We strongly encourage that you put in as much information as possible when you're booking your appointment, because this will help your tutor prepare for the appointment. So put in information about the course name and what areas of concern you have, and tell the tutor a bit about what you want to discuss. What are your primary concerns? And anything else that is going to be required, please fill it in here. And if there's any documents that you also want to upload, this could be your course outline, maybe something that you've already been working on, like a draft that you want to review with somebody, then you can actually create that appointment. So this is how you make an appointment with an academic learning center tutor. And we want to encourage you to do that in preparation for any assignments that you might have, or any, I guess, planning that you need to get done ahead of time. It is also important that you, schedule your time with an academic learning center tutor or a study skills tutor ahead of time. It doesn't really help you to try to make an appointment a few hours before the assignment deadline, or a day before the exam, which is early morning the next day, right? Because then that doesn't give you enough time to actually implement what the tutor is going to be able to assist you with. So we encourage you to try to book these appointments ahead of time.
And I know that Giadza mentioned a number of different tutors. So there's 3 different types of tutors that are available to you through the Academic Learning Center. Writing tutors can help you with developing stronger writing skills, like whether it's organizing your paper or citation and referencing styles. They can assist you with that. And primarily students who are in courses where you have to submit papers tend to work with our writing tutors. Study skills tutors help students with developing study skills. So things such as time management or concentration, or lack of motivation, how to study for multiple choice tests, things like that are very concrete and related to your study skills. This is where a study skills tutor can be a huge ally for you. And then the last one is a content tutor. So for example, if you're struggling in your chemistry course and you really need somebody to tutor you in chemistry, you can book an appointment with a content tutor. So when you go to this page and you create an account and you're able to see the whole calendar, you're actually able to limit your search to the specific subject. So for example, Bio 1000, Bio 1020, you can see them listed here. Or you can filter it more specifically based on writing or study skills tutors. And you can also book up to 2 appointments per week. So it's not like a one-time deal. You can continue to work with tutors, from the very beginning of your term right now all the way in preparation for your final exam. So it's a great resource, and we do encourage you to try it out. And if it's been helpful for you and beneficial, that's amazing.
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of other things that they can also help you with, including like tips sheets as well, right? So if there's other resources that you think might be useful, that you might need, and maybe you might be wondering, is it out there? Contact a study skills tutor, contact the Academic Learning Center. There's a lot of resources available to you as a student at the U of M. Okay.
We talked a little bit about tutors being a great resource. If you have any follow-up questions to some of the techniques and the strategies that we had talked about today, but there may be some other questions on your mind, maybe not so much related to, how to create a study schedule. We understand that this is, a time of the year where you're wondering, how do I get a student ID card? How do I get my textbooks? where do I pay fees? When do I pay fees? So we do encourage you to search the U of M website at umanitoba.ca. In the search function, you're able to type in anything and get an answer to it. That's probably the fastest way for you to get answers to some of those more general and common questions. But of course, if you can't find the answer, then you're welcome to email an advisor in the first year center, and we will be happy to connect with you and assist you.
All right. So we understand that we've got a little bit of time here, and we might be able to, we can actually open up the chat for questions that you might have, or any maybe feedback that you might have on the stuff we've talked about today for creating your schedule. As Lana mentioned, you might have other questions that are outside of, you know, creating a study schedule, or maybe study skills related questions. You can certainly contact us or look that up on the U of M website, but we're going to open up the chat for questions that are specifically related to study scheduling and anything that's related to actually, you know, creating effective notes and preparing and condensing those notes after a lecture. Okay, is the chat open?
The chat is open.
All right.